Yes, yes, yes. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. Before we get this party started, the message of the week. I've said it before, something my mentor has said to me many times, and it stuck with me among the many things he said that didn't. But this one really stood out, and it applies to today's show and today's guest and what they've built. And it is better to own 20% of 5 things than 100% of one. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have 20% of 5 different businesses or 5 different investments. You could, in fact, do that within your own brand. And that's something I find fascinating about today's guest. She is a very creative, extraordinary entrepreneur and very hard worker, and has managed to really diversify her brand and do some remarkable things, and she's got some exciting news coming up. With that, I would like to welcome to this show all the way from Nantucket, Massachusetts, Wendy Rouillard. How are you today? You got to unmute, Wendy. You're still on mute.
There we go.
There we go. I know, it's a writer thing, right? Welcome, welcome. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. So to introduce everybody, Wendy is the creator of the Barnaby Book series, which was spawned by a bear that I believe, was it your grandmother owned?
Yes, it was originally my grandmother's bear. Yes, and she passed it down to my mother, but then my mother, of course, gave him to me.
And so this was the catalyst for this brand that you've created that begat here in New York City when you were at Parsons, correct?
Yes.
And it was
Yes.
It was like a senior thesis. You were like, all right, let me see what we can do with this.
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes way back, of course, to this bear that I had as a child. That was my steadfast companion that I took him everywhere with me. And then kind of fast forward, of course, and attended Parsons School of Design. And all through college, I worked for one of my professors who was a stuffed animal designer. Oh. And I worked for her in Hoboken on weekends, and we designed stuffed animals for, Lord Taylor and Macy's. And so that really was definitely the catalyst for me wanting to get into this whole area of this whole children's book world. And I was an illustration major. And so I thought how great it would be for my senior thesis to create this bear who lives on this faraway island. And I had spent summers at the time on Nantucket. I thought this is such a magical island. And even though I don't really call it Nantucket, we call it the faraway land. And anyway, so that's how it all started. And so I wrote and illustrated my very first book. Back then I was hand sewing the bears to accompany the book. And I went from door to door selling it my senior year. And within 3 weeks, I sold 2,000 copies. It sold out. And so that's really how it all began.
That's great. That's like the hardworking portion that I was referencing earlier. I was reading your story and I was like, wow. I mean, it reminds me of, I had similar experiences with my grandparents. My grandfather was a master woodworker. And when I was like 11 years old, he used to send me around the neighborhood going door to door to sell the things that he created. And that just instills in you it's a different level of entrepreneurship versus, no offense to all you young digital entrepreneurs, this is a little bit different. I want to talk about like the tangible aspect of it a little later. Like you've got books and dolls, which is, anytime you're like making something physical, that's also taking it to the next level. Too. But I really find it intriguing the way you took like this piece of nostalgia and childhood. Like everybody was a child, right? And we all have at least one, even like the poorest of kids had like that one thing that they remember. Maybe it was passed down from a family member, maybe it was just something that they found, but we all have like kind of that one thing, and that's kind of the thing you tapped in. So exactly. it appears on the surface that you're marketing to children, but really you're marketing to everybody.
I mean, it's funny, I am. And I think that, I really wanted, my goal, of course, was to create this bear that would be a timeless character and one that kids could rely on, a loyal friend they could take everywhere. And that was definitely what I wanted to share throughout this whole process.
Yeah, but it's a wide net you cast, because not only do you get the kids, but like the parents of kids who
And it's
also,
wholesome, right? It's wholesome.
yeah.
As a parent, you want to, hopefully, it's Barnaby that's someone that can be sort of like a mentor or a leader and that sort of thing. So it's definitely a wholesome character.
So I'm curious with your time at Parsons, because
Yeah.
I studied music. I have 2 music degrees, and they didn't teach us shit about business. Did you get like I just grew up running small businesses and restaurants, like the one I'm sitting in right now.
Yeah.
I learned it like boots in the street. At Parsons, did they give you some sort of guidance in terms of like business approach to market the things that you were
Yeah.
creating?
Well, I mean, the wonderful thing about Parsons was that throughout the whole 4 years, I took marketing classes, and so I have a degree in business administration. But they really did. I mean, that's what Parsons does well, at least when I was there, and in this specific program, is they really taught us how to get out there and market your product, because you can of course create something great, but probably like 90% of my job is just marketing and trying to get it out there. And so of course it's so important.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I was having a discussion with a gentleman earlier in the week about
Yeah.
boxers, like professional fighters, and how boxing is really like the easy part of the gig. You have to really market yourself, and for some guys, that means you have to talk a lot of smack, to
Right.
get yourself bumped up. Or there's a bunch of other things you could do, but it really on all things, it's like the marketing is really the hardest part.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good to hear. And then within your family, did you also, I'm wondering if there was some part of that passed down as well, were there like business owners in your family? Were you kind of introduced to that earlier on, or was this something that you kind of picked up in college and went with from there?
No, it's funny because my whole family is in education. So my mom was a librarian, my brother's a school teacher, my father was a headmaster. So I grew up definitely, no one ran a business.
Yeah.
I grew up with that whole sort of side of the education. But, I'd always been like that. At age 10, I had a gerbil farm and I raised 200 gerbils in my bedroom. And I would bring them down to the local, ride my bike down to the local, pet store, and I would get 50 cents a gerbil. And so like, I've always, from that to, which is like, it's so funny to think about how I slept through 200 gerbils in my bedroom. But to like having a paper route, to having all these multiple, of course, different businesses. I always wanted, I always worked. Even as a little child, I was always trying to come up with something, selling my art, whatever it was. So I think it's just sort of in me.
Yeah, a lot of people say entrepreneurship it's not taught really. It's kind of just inside of you.
It's that drive, to want to.
And so right out of school, did you just go straight into this and that was just kind of it?
Yeah, it was funny. So through the process, as I'm writing and illustrating my first book senior year, I thought, I better do, back then, of course, because we couldn't just like Google the name Barnaby, but I had a lawyer look up the name and make sure I wasn't infringing on someone's trademark. An 80-year-old man out in Minnesota back then owned the name Barnaby. And he said to me, I will sell it to you for $15,000. So I thought, here I am, a senior in college. I don't have any money, but I have to have the name. And my parents were like, no, just change the name to Brody, Brian, anything. You don't need, But of course, I had to have that name. So I took out loans. So anyway, to answer your question, I did. I graduated, but I had all these other loans now, right? I had a trademark loan to pay off. So it took me a couple of years working a couple of jobs and Barnaby to obviously, to pay the bills and get it off the ground. But I did. I was working in New York right after college for just a few months. And I thought, this is just, I'm just going to move out to Nantucket just for maybe a year and try to get this off the ground. And I never left.
That was it.
It's about this place that so many people move out here. Oh, I'm just going to do it for a year. And then, here I am, years later.
That's amazing. What was I going to ask? Barnaby, that was the name of your childhood bear and like passed down? No, okay. I'm curious. So why the insistence on the Barnaby?
I don't know. It's funny, Barnabas is an old whaling name on Nantucket. And I liked, shortening it to Barnaby. It was so crazy to think. It's crazy for me to think now that I spent all this money back then on a name that could have easily been changed. And it was like a name that I had to have. And I wasn't going to change it. And I was going to I don't know. I just absolutely fell in love with the name, and it just felt right. It was just Barnaby. Yeah.
No, it's another good lesson for like the young entrepreneurs out there, like your gut, your intuition, right? Intuition has survived humans for so long. And sometimes people ask me all the time, like, how did you know? Like, it just felt like it. I just had to go with it, and that was it. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But when it works out, you're like, oh, it was my intuition.
Right. I mean, I had to work 2 more jobs just to kind of pay that off senior year, but it was perfect.
And then these days, what's it like? I don't know anything about writing books. I'd like to one day, but I had absolutely no clue about it. If you mentioned like back then that you couldn't just like Google search, but now is that kind of the modus operandi where you would just kind of search and see if the brand existed out there?
Yes.
And then,
I always think that's kind of the first place to start.
Right.
Just to see what's out there. Yeah.
And then you still would have to likely purchase it from anybody that wanted to sell it. And would you say, like, in hindsight, 15 grand was a steal? Do you think it would cost more these days?
I mean, now it would probably be worth like 60,000 to buy that. So was it worth it? I mean, I believe it was worth it, but it was in the beginning stages, and so of course it would have been really easy just to go with something else.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have changed it but would I purchase it for 60 grand today?
The question is,
naive. I was 21 years old.
How much would you sell it for these days?
A lot.
Yeah. Right.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would never sell it.
No, I know.
Yeah.
It seems like it's your family now, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's my first one.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like when we've opened a number of businesses, but there was a certain point where we had 2 children, and my restaurant, Della, where I'm at right now, my wife would always say, like, that's our 3rd child.
Yeah.
But then we had a 3rd child, so we had to we had to bump Della down a little bit. But that's another takeaway. Is that it's like you have to treat it like it's your child. You have to treat it like a family member. And I love that you just have all those components like mixed in there. I feel like that's kind of lost on. Again, not to single out you young entrepreneurs and digital dudes out there, but like, you really have to treat it. It's great to have somebody on that has like this like physical thing. It's like tangible, but it's like so real and part of your existence as well, as opposed to people who are just like, I'm starting this business and building it to sell it. This is the real stuff.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, this is just like, it's in me. And there have been so many times through this whole journey where I'm like, I am nuts. Like, I have just got to do something else, or this is not working, or this is not, and I just I've just never quit. I've never stopped.
Yeah. Well, I think that's when you're on the right path, right? When you're like, this is nuts. Like, this is crazy. I think if it was easy, you wouldn't care.
Right.
If it was just like, oh, this just came to me and it just always worked out. It wouldn't be like your family member. You just wouldn't care. It would just be like this thing you have.
Right. And it is frustrating. Sometimes you see these people who've worked like, no time at all. Right. And it just explodes. And then you're like, why am I having to like still hit the pavement every single day to get this out there? And,
It's because we're old. That's why.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take our first break. Hang tight and we'll come back and pick this right back up, everybody. All right, folks, welcome back. If you're just tuning in, once again, you're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. Today, we're zooming to Nantucket, speaking to author, creator, and entrepreneur, Wendy Rouillard. And it's funny, you just brought up at the end of the last segment, that kind of crazy feeling like, what am I doing? And you see these people like explode and land these, seemingly, right? We don't know what happens behind closed doors, but
True.
It's another thing my mentor and I talk about much. I started working for him in like 1993 when he opened his first restaurant. He was, I think I was 17 and he was 24. And like, we had no clue either of us what we were doing. And he's like franchised now, he's really like blown up, and very focused and hardworking gentleman as well. But it's so funny because we talk about it all the time now. Like, we both have restaurants. I've opened a number of them myself, and like retail stores. And we like work so hard and everything, like our overhead is so high. And then there's like this person, they like do this, ebook and they make all this money, like, so that kind of brings me to like what I wanted to talk about in this portion is, the fact that you were hand sewing bears. And were you like printing your own books at first too? Were you like?
Yes. Oh yes. For years. I mean, I was very naive. I thought, I'm just going to,
gonna make books.
These books and like, they're just going to sell and I'm just going to like make these bears and then we're all, So no, I mean, I did for many, many, many years and only recently just signed on with Andrew McNeil's Universal and Simon & Schuster's, handles all their distribution. And so, I mean, I did it for years.
And you were doing distribution as well?
Distribution as well.
All right.
No, it's been insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is something that I don't know if I would highly recommend, but.
No, but I feel like kids should apprentice with you just for like a few months. Like I always say that, like, come work for me for like 3 months.
Right.
Like be by my side and you see like the real, like how deep the ditches get.
Right. Exactly.
It's no joke, man. So I appreciate the fact that in this like digital moving world, you're taking a step back, like, marketing nostalgia, but you're also working within it. Like those things are not free, right? You've got the cost of goods to produce them, but then the time it takes for you to put together, which the old, like all those movies from the 80s say time is money. Like,
right. Exactly.
Straight up, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of time.
So why would you do that?
I don't
know. Well, I always ask people why, because they, one quote that sticks with me all the time is like, you might not know how to get all these things done that you want to, but if you know why you're doing it, how often becomes apparent over time. So what's the real drive for you to like hand make bears and print books? What's the deeper meaning to Wendy for like why you would go through all that when like the ebook version was available?
Right. So it's like I have a couple of different. So I mean, I think it's just like it's in me. It's like I wanted to create this character that, like I said, that is like this just loyal, steadfast, kind of wholesome character for kids. And really, the messages in all my stories are very simple. They're really kind of like enjoying the simple things in life. And, my new book, Where is Barnaby Bear, is really about being brave and stepping out into the world, but it's also about all the simple things that Barnaby loves to do, whether it's riding his bike, eating an ice cream, skipping rocks on the ocean, eating, a blueberry muffin. It's like all those simple, wholesome. And I just felt from a very young age, and I think it was like living in New York City through college. And I grew up we lived all over, but I really loved nature and I really loved the outdoors, and I still do. And I really felt like in college living there, it was like people were always in a rush, as we know. They're always, I felt at a very young age that no one was kind of stopping and enjoying the simple things in life. So that was sort of my main thing that I wanted to share at a really young age. I am opening up a store out here now called Barnaby's Art Shack. Again, I asked myself this morning, why am I doing this? This is the most insane thing, as you know, in retail. Why am I now dealing with barcodes? And it's that I want to offer a community space for the kids on Nantucket because they have no place to go. There is nothing to do in the winter. They walk around and around and around town and there's nothing open. There's no place to go. So, I mean, there are different things that I've wanted to accomplish.
But it's just a further testament of how like deep nostalgia is baked into like your value system. So it's like the nostalgia for you personally, having this bear in your family. So this is really coming from your heart. And then sharing that story with both kids and adults who probably experience something similar, but then just the idea of like, let's put this down for a little while.
Yes.
And like actually make something, like we're really taking it back to something that humans have done since the beginning. Just like make something with your hands. So even in the way that you produce the product, it seems to me like that's integral to it. And why?
And we didn't even have phones, right, back then. So
Right.
it wasn't even like I was trying to get away and getting kids. Now it's like really all about putting down the phone.
But like you said, like there's New York especially, there are plenty of distractions. It's funny, I have this fight with my wife, not fight, discussion.
Yes.
Discussion with my wife all the time. And you know, she seems to forget that we had, you know, magazines and you know, VHS tapes and
Right.
you know, just like cable and television. There was still like plenty of distractions
Yes.
out there. Unfortunately, her and I were just the people that wanted our hands in things, and we
Right.
did that instead. But there's always been the distraction. Even when we were young, it was
Right,
there.
exactly.
And my saving grace was working in kitchens and playing music, because that was real. And you had this, you know, drive to produce you know, crafts and like actually write books, like really write a book.
Right.
So that, it seems to me like that's really a big part of your, just like your value system and the culture of what you're doing is just this nostalgia throwback thing, like really create.
Like the store I'm opening is it's half the store is this really incredible art studio for kids with over 200 projects. So it's not just like they can come in and like paint on canvas. I mean, it's like, you know, we have blown it up to like wood making. We have different shacks, different kinds of, so it's like, you know, again, I'm trying to like encourage kids, you know, get in there, get your hands, you know, get dirty, let's create something. And then the other half, of course, are really fun, interactive toys that are, you know, wood or whatever it is that they're made out of. And then we've got a little like kids cafe back. So again, still trying to encourage kids to really create.
Yeah. To be real. Yeah. So far we've talked about 3. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, 20% of 5 things. So right now you've got a bear that you make. You've got a bear.
Well, not anymore. You know, I don't hand sew.
Right, but you still make and sell bears, correct?
Yes, still make and sell bears.
So you got your little trinket, your little toy. Good. You got the books, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've done 25 books so far.
Yes.
You got a book to hold up?
Not all. Yep. Got a book to hold up. This is my new book. So, yes, some are now have been sold out and are out of print, but yes.
But 25 releases.
Yes.
And more coming.
More coming.
So you got the print material, and now we're talking brick and mortar.
Now we're talking brick and mortar.
Based off the same brand. I love how you sigh. I do the same thing. This guy, a couple months ago, you know, New York's a mess right now, and there's like so many vacant storefronts and everything, and I keep saying, oh my God, like I've opened four, you know, kind of full service places before. I'm down to just one right now.
You're down to one now. Okay.
Yeah. But you know, this guy was like, I want you to come look at a place with me. It was like right under the Brooklyn Bridge. And I'm like, man, I can't get into this right now. And he's like, just come look. And I'm like, oh, like being a hater the whole time.
Yeah.
We get out of the car and I walk inside and I was like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. Like so let's talk numbers. Like I just found myself like negotiating within like 5 minutes. And I was like, oh man, but that's just, you know, that one didn't pan out. Probably better.
Right, okay.
Better that it didn't. But yeah. Quickly you flip, you know, and you're like, I came back and I'm talking about it, and like my staff and my wife are like, what are you doing? I'm like, yeah, but that's just, it's that gut feeling, you know. I was like,
that gut, yeah.
That one could work. That one could work.
Right. Exactly. And I get, you know, it's something that I have wanted to do, I guess. My friends keep telling me, talking about this for years. I'm like, I don't really, you know, and it's something that like, you know, we're such a small community and such a small island, and we had a toy store. We had 2, and I never wanted to kind of do something and step on anyone's toes. Right. But anyway, a couple of years ago, one retired and one moved off island. So now there's this opening, right? So I'm not stepping on anyone's toes. I'm actually going to now be able to offer something that's not here, which I think is valuable. So
it's the core of entrepreneurship, right? Find the problem and solve it.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not one to like ever want to step on anyone's toes or do something that has like sort of been done. Yeah. So there was enough.
And that's a tribute to like you caring about your community, I think.
We have a great community. I don't know if you've been out here, but it's a
I haven't. It's so funny since I was a little kid. I've read about Nantucket and always wanted to visit. It's just like been in the back of my head. So it was funny. I was just like, oh, that place, it's special to me, and I've never even been there. But like, Where we're at in Brooklyn, it's the same way. It's
Uh,
just like this tight knit little community. And same thing, you would never, you would never want to open something that everybody, all the businesses are owned by locals. So we all know each other. Our kids have gone to school together. And you would never be like, oh, there's a pizza place across the street, I'm going to open a pizza place too. Just because like,
right.
you'd be like, no, I'm going to do something different.
Different.
That's
Exactly.
community-based values. That's how communities thrive.
Yeah. Exactly. And we have a great year-round community. So
Right.
yeah.
Awesome. We're going to take our second break. All right. So hang tight, everybody. We'll be right back. All right, everybody. We're hopping right back into it. Again, today we're talking to Wendy Rouillard. She is the creator of the Barnaby Bear book series. And just to recap, so she sells and used to make hand-sewn bears, print books. So those two still happen. She's since passed on the production and distribution of those two, correct?
Yes. No, I still have held on to the bears. So
But you're not hand sewing them anymore? Or you
no,
are?
I'm not hand sewing them, but I'm still distributing at the moment.
Okay.
Yes.
So production, distribution.
Yes.
Now we're getting into retail, and
Yes.
and it's not open yet, correct? But it's
No, we open May 1st.
yeah. So you're right there. Oh man,
Yeah.
I remember those days. I remember that feeling. And so what fascinated me about reading about this, the retail, is that you're not just a kid store. You're not just like a store where kids come and buy things. And I've seen success with that around here in Brooklyn as well. Like the area we live in is like mad kids. I mean, I've contributed 3 myself, so we're part of the problem. But and where we have a similar situation in the neighborhood where and there's a decent business district, but there's never been a kids place like that. And there's available space and there's plenty of kids. There's a few people that have come to me and said like, hey, what do you think about this? And I've said, that's a great idea, but it can't be just retail. Like you will not survive, even with a brisk online business. You need to have something that's like educational and or engaging, where you're doing, arts and crafts, music classes, like all these things. There's one place, it's like a toy store, and then kids get their hair cut in the back. On Fifth Ave in Brooklyn. And it's
exactly. I think that, right? Don't they have a couple in the city? I think I used to bring my girls there. Exactly.
So that's also like good advice for anybody thinking about going, and I don't care what you're selling. If you're going to have a retail component, that it has to be multifaceted these days, because there's so much competition.
Exactly.
With online stores, first of all. I mean,
I know and that's the thing. It's like, we're a little unique in that, of course, obviously everyone out here does order online because it is easier but if you needed something right away, right, there aren't many options.
Mm-hmm.
So we are hoping that people obviously will support the downtown and still shop, and people need it right away, and
But you'll be experience based as well.
Definitely. That's what I would love to offer, is this experience of coming in and it is, I think the way we've set it up, we're also offering classes as well. And so we'll have 2 morning classes for different age groups. So you can come in and take a class, or you can just simply come in. And I think what I really love about it is that you can spend what you want to spend. So we don't have these set prices like, okay, this piece of pottery is $25. And it's you want to just get some wood and create for a couple of bucks. So it's all price ranges.
Yeah, that's great. And you'll need that at first, and then I think you'll find. So have you ever run a retail establishment before?
I mean, I've worked retail when I first was trying to get Barnaby off the ground. That's what I did. I worked retail on the side, and so I do feel like I have some experience. Are those $2 little creations going to pay the rent out here? That's why I'm not really sure yet. I'm hoping that my business model works, but the rents are very high, so we'll see.
Well, the good part about it, and that's why I think the advice, like the 20% rule, works, is because you have multiple revenue streams for your brand.
Yes.
And they fluctuate like that. They kind of will go up and down. And when, you could take the route of when one is suffering and one is not, it bails the other out. Or you could look at that and say that's not a good 20%. Right. We gotta sever the strings.
Right.
Retail can work very well. I mean, it's everything we're talking about. A lot of people say like print material is dead, like production is dead. Everybody wants like this digital experience, but it's really not. It just depends on the way you do it. And I feel like you're being very creative about it, and you're being multifaceted. I think if you just like we're like, I'm going to do this one thing and that's it. And if it doesn't succeed, I'm out. You're setting yourself up, not for failure necessarily, but you have a better chance for success. I think the approach you're taking, where you're casting a wider net and you're approaching it from different angles, and talk about like leveraging a brand. You know, you're like, you take your grandmother's bear and you're like, shing, like pull on that what's the slot machine, you know?
New, right? I mean, I did, you know, it's like, it was just, yeah. Who knew though I would love designing stuffed animals as a job in college? I mean, I attended Parsons. I mean, I went for fashion design. That's what I really thought. And then a year later was like, oh my gosh, I just love being in this world.
Well, I mean,
this world of like creating these characters, these animals.
Your bear has clothes, right?
He's got clothes. He has, yeah. I just have my little version here, but he has little overalls. Yep.
So kind of, I'm curious. I want to learn a little bit more about the retail, you know, procedure, and how do you envision it operating? Is this going to be open 7 days a week?
So, you know, Nantucket's unique in that we're really, obviously, every month varies out here. So, you know, for instance, we're opening May, but it's still kind of quiet till Memorial Day, right?
Right.
So like 5 days. Obviously, the summer will be open 7 days a week. We'll probably be open to like 8 or 9 at night during July and August. Again, Labor Day, like that's what I sort of like about living out here, is that we do have, I mean, it's hard in that we have very quiet seasons or months, but you know, it all varies. So there will be a break, and then the fall is really busy out here. So we'll probably just continue being open 7 days, but you know, I'm going to have to see how it goes, and then see, my goal was to really keep this open year round. So everyone has a place to go. So that is my goal, is to keep this.
And I think you'll figure it out, like based off of the way people operate. I mean, at least you know the seasons. I've worked resort towns before too.
Yeah.
What sucks is when you're just in a city and things just get quiet and you don't know why. You're like, wait.
Exactly. Exactly.
And how does like the current restrictions play into how things are going to work for you at first? Have you?
Yeah, I mean, we've been really, you know, you know, the island's doing pretty well. I mean, we're having another outbreak again, but in terms of like our numbers, we are, I believe, right now we can only have 10 to 12 people inside, but we'll see as more and more people are getting vaccinated if that changes. The nice thing is that we have outside seating, so I'm really going to be able to move the classes. I believe outside, and they'll be sheltered, and so I think that we're lucky in that sense.
Did I read it'll be a cafe as well?
We have like a little snack bar in the back. Yeah, so it's like a little area where kids can kind of hang out a little bit, grab a snack. We've got a whole penny candy area. I mean, I'd love to kind of expand next door eventually and kind of open up like a real kind of kids cafe type of thing out here, but we'll see. Now I'm getting ahead of myself.
But no, like you're not gonna have like cooks and like fire and stuff.
No,
okay.
No.
Because when I read that, I was like, this is ambitious. I like it. Like, this is ambitious.
No one is cooking.
Okay. But you do have some outdoor area, especially for like the nicer weather where people.
Yes, that's what we're sort of hoping that will help.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's crazy how like these days people are only looking at spaces if they have some sort of outdoor something. It's just like that's almost a guaranteed sell right there, and you can charge a premium for that.
Right. I mean, the beautiful thing about where we're located is that we are 10 steps to the ocean. Yeah. And there's a whole park. So even if you're going to just grab a snack from us and, you know, a little project, you could even just, you know, walk right down to the water, which is beautiful, and sit right there. And that land bank has taken over a whole park. So they're going to have tables, they're going to have. So we kind of lucked into that.
Good. Yeah. That's great. That's really great. And I'm assuming, I don't know, I haven't left New York in like 18 months. There's like still mask mandates. So like your staff will have to wear masks. And customers as well. Like kids are going to come in, and while they're taking the class, they'll have to.
I think so, unless it changes, you know, say by June or July.
Right.
I know.
Goes around to Texas and just says, hey,
right.
Worry about it.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you here, it's not all businesses, but some, like for indoor seating in New York City right now, I have to take everybody's temperature at the door. I have to get like contact information from at least one person in the party. So just be prepared for that, like especially for the classwork. You wouldn't have to do that likely for just someone coming in to shop, but you're probably going to have to you probably have their contact information anyways. But yeah,
when they sign
you get
up,
to be a little bit of a school teacher and like take their temperature. It's the strangest thing, but when you're a business owner and you care, you just do like whatever you have to make it through. And
exactly.
You kind of mentioned it earlier, like it was hard, but like you just never quit. Like that was just not that was not in the DNA, right? To give up. And
just like not something I never wanted to walk away from it. I just love it. There's not a day that I don't. I mean, yes, am I like, why am I opening a store? Sure, I've had mornings. But why am I writing and illustrating children's books? Absolutely not. Like there hasn't been a day that I have not enjoyed it.
I think, and I suggest this to people all the time, if you're asking yourself if you should do it, you probably should.
Right.
It's like, should I open a retail store? Like you want to know what's.
You want to. Yeah.
And it may not work out, but that's okay. I mean, I've lost businesses. And you learn more about what you want to do by learning what you don't want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Sure.
It's true. Yeah.
All right, we have one more break. Let's take that. We'll come back and we'll wrap this one up, everybody. Hang tight. We'll be back in just a minute. All right, everybody. We're going to wrap this one up today. Again, talking to Wendy Rouillard. She's the creator of the Barnaby Bear series out of Nantucket, Massachusetts. And she's got her hands in a number of things. She's really maximizing the output of her brand. So she's got an actual tangible doll that she used to sew, but doesn't sew anymore, but sells and still distributes. She's got books that she used to press, but now she has somebody else do that and handles the distribution. She is opening a brick and mortar retail and experience-based store in Nantucket on May 1st. So that's 3. But she's also a radio show host that deals within her space. She writes a monthly column for a media outlet and a couple of other things. Some of the stories have been used in plays. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean they're actually going to. They're going to do it. They've taken 3 more of my books and they've turned them into plays and camps this summer for kids at the Dreamland Theater. So it's a weekly camp, and I'm also actually helping them with the art program, creating props they can use that will go with the book. And so they're going to act out the book. And so that's been great. And
so you get to further utilize like your education and
yes.
The idea of facilitating the creative and artistic process. Are they paying you for the use of the stories in the play, or is this for you? You're just like allowing them to use it? I'm allowing them to use it. Yeah. This is a theater that I would love to support anyway on Nantucket. Right. So yes, but so they obviously are paying me to help with the programming, that type of thing. But in terms of they can, So just another facet of you kind of monetizing this whole process but also continuing to market the Barnaby brand. And then how does that play in with the monthly column and the radio show? You've had the radio show for 3 years on NPR, and it's Kids About Town. Yes, and also the monthly column I'm writing now for N Magazine, which is Nantucket Magazine, and it's just it's a monthly column of like what's happening for kids on the island. So that's fun. So just kind of like different things that when people are visiting or islanders can participate in. And how important would you say, especially those two, like the radio show and the monthly column, how much do they contribute to like your brand and what you're trying to accomplish with your company? The magazine for sure has been great. It's great exposure. It's a beautiful magazine. That has been wonderful. And it's a lot of fun to do this. The plays, obviously, when they did this a couple of years ago, was great. It's just great publicity. It's great. And then I do book signing at the end of the camp, and I'll work with the kids, and I come, So, all of it, right, helps. But all of it's really enjoyable too. Right, but it does help. The thing is, like, for people that come from creative backgrounds, that kind of stuff is always enjoyable, right? It's like when they were asking me if I wanted to host a show, I was just like, I have no experience in radio, but yeah, that sounds fun. Like, let's just do that. But, I always try to stress to people, whether they're up and coming entrepreneurs and business owners or people that have been at it for a while, and they're just like, I don't know how to get to the next level.
Yeah.
I always stress how important some form of media is to what you're doing.
Yes.
If you're not utilizing some sort of, it doesn't mean you have to be on social media. It helps, but it doesn't mean you have to be.
Right.
But do something. You have to do something to drum up some noise. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And yeah, I would just love to hear like your thoughts on that, based on like your experience with the radio show and writing in the plays. Like what advice would you have for anybody, looking to get off the ground right now in terms of use of media?
It's funny because I was sort of resistant to social media, and it's probably just because of my age. I didn't do a lot with it. And so of course, now that I'm actually doing more with it to really promote my new book, I mean, of course, right? That has really, really helped. I was foolish not to take advantage of that all these years. But I just sort of thought, don't really need to. Obviously that it's made a bigger difference. I've only now just started to really engage in it, which is crazy. So obviously that's important.
I'm guilty of the same. I'm totally guilty of the same.
It's trying to the store like right off the bat, and it's just a great way to announce things and to get the word out there, of course. And as you said, like the radio and the it all helps. I really have felt like nothing is really a waste of time. And there are things, of course, you're like, I shouldn't be wasting my time doing that. But it really, there have been times way back, or even, that I'm at a book signing and maybe only 5 people came to this book signing when I was starting. But, one of them was the CEO of some company that then reached out to me to help, So I don't really think that if you're out there trying to promote that, it's never completely a waste of time. And it's just sort of like, I try to say yes more than I would ever say no, type of thing. I always try to do, within reason, of course. You can't make yourself too crazy. But, and everyone everyone to me does matter. Like everyone matters. Whether someone sends me a message like, my child loves Barnaby, would you be able to like meet me on the street and say hello? Last summer I had people reaching out. Would you just be able to say a quick hello? Absolutely. Like, and so all of that is important. All of that is important.
That's great advice. It really is.
I think.
No, it is. And I think it's a testament, like some of us have patience and get that. Like not every game is like walk-off home run, right? Like sometimes there's these little small victories like that. Like I love that CEO story. Like 5 people showed up and you were probably like, oh man. And then like one of the coolest things came out of like that little thing, So it's not always like I think that's a real good lesson for business ownership, is that like there are far fewer like massive wins. There's a lot of little teeny wins, and those are the ones that
I feel like my business has been a lot of, obviously, still pushing, still trying to get Barnaby out there. Still, I'd love to see Barnaby on television. I would love obviously I still have goals, and I would love. But I think it's all these small victories, right? And you have to stop and appreciate each little small victory. Like, my book just was chosen with Indigo Books in Canada as Heather's pick. And I don't know for anybody who knows, but like Indigo Books is like the Barnes and Noble type bookstores started by a woman, Heather Reichman. And, I just took a gamble. I don't know Heather. I know she does have a house on Nantucket, but I've never met her. And, I took a gamble and sent my book to her, hoping that it would get to Canada, hoping it would reach her. I didn't know if she, and she stopped. And a day later, picked up the phone and she's like, I love your new book. I can't believe but on and on. And she chose it as one of her picks for her bookstores, and she has 209 bookstores. And wow. Again, no one did that for me. Mm-hmm. I took a chance. I said, I'm just going to send her a copy. And at FedEx, they're like, it's going to be $80 to send that over now. I'm like, $80? I'm going to spend $80 again. It's the best $80 I've ever spent.
I was going to say cheaper than 15 grand.
I'm like, it's the best $80 they have ever. It was lovely. And for her to stop and pick up the phone and call me. So anyway, it's those small little, you just have to keep, no one's going to do that for you. No one's going to do that for you.
That's great antidote. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. And television too. I just love it. You're just going for it.
Well, I mean, I don't know how I'm going to get it on television, but I just think that it would just be a great preschool series.
Yeah, you could do it. Yeah, you could totally do it on your own.
I don't know how I'm going to start, but.
Yeah. Well, you probably didn't know how you were going to start any of this, but
Right.
I'm going to keep an eye out for that because I have a feeling you're going to pull this off. But you
thanks.
could literally do it with like, if you have these 3 little lenses on your phone
Yes.
and like access to the internet, you could get started. It's pretty, I don't want to say it's simple, but it is that simple in a way. I mean, it's like starting people, that's why I was asking about the media thing and the radio show, because people are always like, oh, I don't know how to start. Like none of us did. We just like, went
You just
for it,
gotta
right? Yeah.
start somewhere. You got to start somewhere.
You hit record, you sit down in the chair, you start talking and hope it resonates with somebody. But you're fine. Like it happens, it works.
Yeah.
Very cool. So before we wrap up, I want you to just like give people some details. Where's the brick and mortar going to be? Where's the best place to find the book or the bear? Where can they listen to your show? Where can they read your column? Like give the deets. Okay. You don't have to give your phone number or anything like that.
Well, you can follow me at Barnaby Bear Books. We'll start there. So if you visit barnabybear.com, I have linked my website to our independent bookstore. And tomorrow is National Independent Bookstore Day. So you're actually supporting our local bookstores. So you can buy, of course, all my books on barnabybear.com. I would encourage everyone to get it through their local independent bookstore. Of course, it's on Amazon and all the, the bigger, in the bigger stores. I'm trying to think what else. My store is located at 12 Oak Street on Nantucket. So it's down by the ferry. So for anyone coming out this summer, please stop by. And what else? The magazine is just N Magazine. It's a monthly column. And
the radio show? 97.7
ACK-FM.
And it's called Kids About Town.
Kids About Town.
And is that weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? Okay. When does it air? When does it air?
It was Thursday mornings at 8 a.m. And trying to think what else. I guess that's it. I mean, it's like, of course, the books are in the book. Oh, and the books and bears, of course, are on my website as well at barnabybear.com.
Does the radio show archive to like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everything, or is it just?
Yeah, believe it or not, it's pretty. We're old school still out here. Yeah.
When you're producing your radio show, just fold that.
When I know that needs, it's on my list.
With all your free time.
With all my free time, exactly.
I know the feeling.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's been a lot of fun. No,
it's really been a pleasure. And any discussion about branding and really like helping people understand more about the process, it pleases me. And you have a great story. And I think you've just done so many amazing things with something that's very dear to you. And I always stress to people like that's the key to survival. Like you have to really care. Because
and never give up, right? It's just like you just don't throw. I just haven't thrown in the towel.
Right. Well, that's how it makes it easier to not give up. That's the point, right? Like when you don't care, it's too easy to give up. And it's like if you're a parent and you have children, you're like, I'm not giving up on that kid. And if you care about your thing, whatever it is, that much, you'll fight for it. And that's that's who gets to reap the rewards.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. You have a great weekend. The rest of you have an awesome weekend. We'll check in with you next week. Peace out.